Hello and welcome back to 4FS Gaming. Today we are taking a close look at the shotgun meta in Hunt Showdown. And yes, shotguns are a real powerhouse at the moment and are almost a mandatory inclusion in any high-powered loadout, unless you want to take in the nitro, of course. Everything from the simple Romero to the Crown and King is seeing a lot of use, so in this video we are going to look at how this came to be and whether or not I think this is a good state for the meta, and I'll follow it up with some suggestions about how shotguns could be put back into line without giving them a harsh nerf. Remember to check out our Discord to keep in touch with the 4FS community. So how exactly did we get here? Shotguns didn't get a big buff in any recent patches, rather their dominance has come about as a result of three other indirect factors. Firstly, the nerf to vitality shots from the last update means that they take much longer to use, around 3 seconds more in fact. This is big because vitality shots were one of the primary ways to stop bleeding, and this meant getting hit by a shotgun from medium range wasn't a very big deal. You could stop the bleed in under 3 seconds and then get back to the fight. Now it is different, because if you get hit by a shotgun, it does put you under a lot of pressure with that bleed, and it provides a lot of opportunities for enemies to push you and secure the kill. The second factor is the damage reduction recently brought in for compact weapons, particularly the limbs. Early game pistols and the Winfield used to be extremely capable of countering shotguns even at close range, as 2 quick taps would guarantee victory against someone closing with a shotgun. With the reduction of limb and gut damage for these weapons, it often takes 3 hits or even more unless you are hitting the upper torso, so shotguns do have an easier time against this array of weaponry. The final factor that led to shotgun dominance was the introduction of the dark side boost. This brought many of the critical fights in a match of Hunt down to the banishing phase, which occurs in and around compounds. Because fights are much more likely to happen inside a compound than out in the open these days, shotguns will have a natural advantage over longer range weapons. I just want to be clear that I'm not saying that the dark side boost mechanic itself benefits shotguns over other weapons, just that the desire to get the boost first, or to stop other teams from surviving the banishing, results in a more aggressive, closer up fighting situation, and those always favour shotgun loadouts. So is all this necessarily a bad thing? Well, I just want to get this out there straight away. I love shotguns. Right from the get-go, I think shotguns have been some of the most satisfying weapons to use. The Crown and King is probably my favourite weapon at the moment, and just any kind of shotgun. The Spectre Bayonet is a great addition, so I'm not against shotguns, and there is definitely decent shotgun variety, options to pair them with various other weapons, and they are cheap and accessible for all players, which the same can't be said for most of the rifle variants. However, and this is just my opinion, I don't think that the game should make it almost mandatory to take a specific type of weapon. Yes, I know you can outplay shotguns with literally any other gun if you are good enough, that's not the point. The point is that players that do not pack shotguns will be at a disadvantage in almost all fights at the moment. And I don't believe that's a particularly healthy thing for the meta. So what do I suggest can be done to balance things out a little bit? Well, that's simple. We just need to nerf shotguns into the ground, tank their damage and remove bleed completely. Okay, so I'm obviously joking, and that's not the way to balance weapons at all, despite the fact that many game developers seem to think that's the kind of thing they need to do. I'm looking at you, Bungie. I think the first thing that needs to be added is more opportunities to counterplay against the bleed mechanic. I have a number of suggestions that could achieve this. Firstly, the time to use that weak vitality shot could be reduced to what it was previous to the last patch. This means that it could be used as a rapid anti-bleed tool. It'll give it more of a use, because as it stands it's not that great once the strong shots become available. Another change that could achieve similar effects would be to make it so that the bleeding stops or pauses when you start the bandaging animation for using a first aid kit. If you don't complete the first aid kit use, then the bleed will resume, but it would be an apply pressure to the wound kind of thing. The only problem I can see with this is that it would affect crossbows, but they can always be balanced independently. This still leaves shotguns in a very strong state, it just adds more counterplay. And counterplay is essentially what makes good balance in any game, layer in strategy and complexity to make fights more interesting and tactical. However, I think that the biggest issue right now is that if you take a shotgun, you're not really risking anything. You don't feel at a disadvantage when fighting at longer ranges, and this is because you can pair it with an array of very effective weapons. Picking a shotgun, especially as a primary, should be a sacrifice. It gives you an enormous edge up close, and as such it should have an equally significant drawback. This difficult choice really isn't the thing at the moment, as weapons such as the uppercut and dolch can be paired with any large shotgun to give you ranged firepower that rival most rifles. In the same vein, Quartermaster allows you to take the Caldwell double barrel hand cannon, which can match the effectiveness of a full-length shotgun easily. I rarely feel any disadvantage when I'm using this wonderful shotgun against other shotguns. In order to make choosing a shotgun more impactful on the drawback side of things, these complementary choices should not be able to round out a loadout to perform at long range as well as dominate at close range. I think the dolch is pretty fine because it does have limited ammo and it is very expensive, but I think that the uppercut is an almost ideal sidearm because it can cover just about every weakness that a shotgun has. Now I am loath to say nerf the uppercut, because it's probably my favourite gun that isn't a shotgun, and I also think it's pretty balanced in its own right. It's not cheap, it doesn't have that many shots, and it fires slowly if you want to be accurate. So instead of making any changes to the uppercut, maybe Crytek could consider extending the damage drop-off curve for the 3 core rifles by just 10 meters or so. This would make them more effective than the uppercut by comparison. The idea is not to make the rifles better against shotguns or each other, only against the sidearms that shotguns can be paired with, so that if you do take a shotgun, you are committing yourself to a reasonably close range loadout, instead of having a 90-meter headshot reach that the uppercut provides. As for the loadouts that pair a rifle with a hand cannon shotgun, the hand cannons are almost too good after their last series of buffs, and maybe Crytek should play around with increasing their pallet spread while also increasing their pallet spread consistency, making them overall less effective, but more reliable if you are aiming for center mass up close. I don't believe it's a good idea just to do a flat out nerf to hand cannons, because that doesn't feel very good for anyone. But if they increase the consistency while increasing the spread, then you will actually have a better time using them, despite the fact that you won't be able to neck people from long range like you can at the moment. Now, I'm not saying that these are changes that need to happen, and I'm not begging for nerfs or buffs of various things, but it's early access, and that means it's the kind of thing that I'd like to see experimented with on the test server. It's by experimenting with all this kind of stuff that will allow the devs to settle on a meta which is the most fun that the game can possibly be, even though, and we're just going to have to accept this, not everyone is going to agree on it. Thank you so much for watching, and please let me know what you think of the shotgun meta in the comments below. This is Ascendance from 4FS Gaming.